Well, hello everybody. I'm Bob Baranick and welcome back to Bob Baranick's Treehouse. Today is another special episode. It's a little bit of memory lane for me. Many of you, if you've watched some of the previous episodes, you've seen this behind me in every one of the episodes. This particular treehouse goes back about as far as I do. This is the first model treehouse I ever built. It's almost 50 years old. I started it when I was in high school. And I worked on it quite a bit when I was at Disney. And unfortunately, I haven't had much time to work on it since then. So I thought I'd bring you up to speed on the history of this wonderful little model. And we'll try to go ahead and finish it now. And that will be the subject of this week's episode. When I was a kid, my dad built a wonderful treehouse in our backyard for my brother and I. We lived in a very rural area. It was very much like Tom Sawyer Island at Disneyland. And all of my friends had forts, so we would play back and forth. One spring back in 1963, we were cleaning out our yard to do a vegetable garden. There was a small walnut tree in the way, so we pulled that tree down. And for some reason, I saved the stump of it. When I was going off to college, I took that stump and added a manzanita branch and built a model treehouse that was a tribute to Swiss Family Treehouse at Disneyland. Many years later, while I was working at Disney, I took that crude early version of the treehouse and stripped it down to just the branch and the stump and started with the current version. Really neat about this model was that I built it at a time when I didn't have a full-scale tree in the yard and I wanted to have the experience of building a treehouse. So I built this from the bottom up as if you were building a real treehouse. Started with the pilings and the beams and laid one plank at a time. This was not a construction that I did on a workbench and put up into the tree. I built a board at a time as if you were building a real treehouse, starting at the bottom, working all the way up. So this treehouse has quite a few features on it that I wanted to point out to you. This is the main room here. This is the observation deck up here. Little pirate flag. We've got a wash tub that was kind of like a turret on a tank that would protect people if they were having a little battle with other tree houses. Or we used to build tree houses like this in my backyard, and we'd have little wars with our slingshots and BB guns and fun stuff. We've got down here a suspension bridge. We've got our tire swing, and we've got at the very base the dock. And if for some chance you had to evacuate the treehouse really quickly, you could go down this fire pole all the way to here and across the rope bridge and then down this ladder and away if you had to get away. And there are some other nice features I'm going to point out as well. So from this angle, you can see our little model macaw here. This is Sebastian. Sebastian is named after a friend of mine. His name was Raul Rodriguez. He had a pet parrot, pet macaw, named Sebastian that traveled with him everywhere he went. Raul was one of the designers of the Rose Parade. And if you remember ever seeing the Rose Parade and seeing Raul, he would ride on one of his favorite floats each year, and Sebastian would be sitting on his shoulder. So now we're going to finish the lighting in this. I explained that I was using little dollhouse lights that you can buy online or at a miniature model shop. Typical like these. Here's a set of 2 brass lights. Here's a little lantern sconce that would hang on the wall. And this is the wire. You can see how fine this is. It's very small. You have to strip the wires. And what I'm doing is I'm in the process of soldering. I've got my soldering iron and I've got my lightweight solder, because being that the wires are so small, we don't want to use very heavy solder on it. And then we're going to finish this one light here. So these are the little grain of wheat bulbs that you can buy at the model shops, very small. These go inside of the lanterns. They come in little packets. Some of these lanterns, like I showed you, already have bulbs in them and you have to wire them through. What I'm going to do is finish this particular one off. It's very close to being done. Got to be very careful. This soldering iron is very hot, and I'm wiring the light inside the lantern to connect with the feed wire that's coming up the branches. So we'll finish this off here real quick. And it should be able to work. Let's plug it in and see how it does. Those little lanterns look really good all the way up through the treehouse. Every room. Now you can see inside to the potbelly stove a little better in there. All the way into here and around up to the top deck. It looked really nice at night, like a Christmas tree. You probably noticed when I was wiring the lights that there's a lot of little white wires running up and down the branches. So what I'm doing is I'm painting some of those out so that they kind of disappear, blend into the branch a little bit. When this tree is covered with leaves, that will help the branches kind of fall back, disappear. But this is the perfect time to disguise those wires before we put all the leaves on them. So now comes the fun part. Very much like the miniatures that we built inside the bell jars, the last step of the process is to add leaves to the tree. I've got probably 3 times more than you see right here. These are plastic vinyl leaves. The scale is perfect for this little tree. So what we're going to do is we're going to add these leaves onto the tree. This is going to be a lot of work, and I'm not going to show the entire process, but what we're going to do is with hot melt glue, we're going to add all these little vinyl leaves all over and transform this tree, bring it to life with green leaves. The scale of these is wonderful. I don't think you can find them anymore. These leaves that I've been saving for many, many years with the intention of making this little manzanita branch green again. I wish you luck in finding them. You might be able to at a floral supply or, perhaps an art store, although I have not seen them and I haven't seen them online. But there are other materials that you can use. Anyway, it's all about hot gluing these little vinyl leaves to all the branches and making it as realistic as possible. So let's get started. Well, we're a little over halfway there and it's coming along pretty well. Looking nice. Very pretty, very realistic. All right, we'll keep going. Well, this is very satisfying. After almost 50 years, I've finished a project that I've been hanging on to forever. It was a great finish too, because it was very satisfying to finally get the lights to work, and more importantly, getting the tree foliated. I've been hanging on to these little vinyl leaves for over 30 years, close to 40 years, knowing that they would eventually be attached to this. And it's funny because having gone through the Tarzan treehouse project, where we had to challenge all of the previous Swiss family tree houses had vinyl leaves that didn't do well in the UV light, so they became very blue. And I was challenged with finding a service, a product that would not fade on us. And so far it's held up very well in the Disneyland treehouse. We found an injection molding service out of Orlando that gave us the leaves that we used for Tarzan's treehouse. And my understanding is they're still using those leaves for the new Adventureland treehouse. Applying these leaves to this manzanita branch was very similar in the process, and it just felt like the exact same thing in miniature. The Tarzan leaves were an assembly of several leaves that attached to the rebar inside of the tree. Very similar here with hot melt gluing these leaf assemblies to the manzanita branch. So that was satisfying, but probably more satisfying than anything is finishing a job that I started after I graduated high school and went to college. And I'm very proud of it. It looks very good. It's a beautiful sculpture, and it works from all sides. So very happy with it. Well, with the successful completion of this manzanita model treehouse, that brings us to the end of our first season of Bob Baranick's Treehouse. And I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. We've had fun here being creative with 3 different scale model tree houses. We've revisited a wonderful experience at Disneyland's Swiss Family Treehouse. We've even been able to journey out and stay in a treehouse resort, and we hope to do more of that in the future. But for now, I'm going to close out this season because I have another project that I have to start, and it's going to take all of my time for the next 6 to 10 months. So we'll move on from Bob Baranick's Treehouse, and when we come back, hopefully later this year, maybe next year, we'll have a whole new direction for this channel. And it starts with this little model right here. This little treehouse is the centerpiece of an IP that I am working with. It's an original IP, and it's a series of children's books for middle grades 8 to 12. It's about a character who is an adventurer and an inventor. It's a fantasy adventure series. It could be 10 books. I've already written 3. I'm working on the 4th one. And as soon as we find a publisher for these books, then we will announce the book series, and we'll get into what's going to happen with this treehouse and more. But in the meantime, I really want to thank you all for joining me here on Bob Baranick's Treehouse. I appreciate your support. I've appreciated your subscriptions, and thank you for visiting, and hope to see you again real soon. You take care of yourselves. Bye.